Good evening, and welcome to our regular meeting of the Helotes City Council. It is January 25th, 2018, and we're underway at 7 p.m. Before we get started on the agenda, we do have some scouts visiting tonight, and everybody's working on their citizenship badges. I just wanted to highlight that. Troop 1830 meets down here at the Latter-day Saints Church. And we have Craig, and we have Nick, and we have Nathan. Stand up, guys. There you go. Thanks for coming. Hope you learned something. And then we have some Cub Scouts from, is it Troop? Pack. That's right. I remembered it was different. Pack 829, and they meet at Steuben Elementary. We have Ryan, Logan, Jack, Tyshawn, and Torrance. Stand up. There you go. He's back there. He's standing up. Welcome, guys, and good luck. Would like to let you know that after the meeting, if you have any questions of the council, just come on up and we'll answer your questions, and hopefully you'll stay for the whole meeting. We have a late comer. What's your name? What? Stand up. Matthew? What troop are you from? 829. 829? And where do you meet?
At Steuben.
Steuben, okay. Oh, you're 829 also. Okay, so you're with these guys. Great, thanks. Okay. Well, like I say, welcome. We hope you learned something. Starting off our agenda, we have our invocation and then the pledges to the American and Texas flags, and Councilmember Fredericks has the invocation tonight, so if you would please stand for the invocation and pledges.
In thanksgiving to our Almighty God, let us be grateful for his benefits and humbly implore his protection and favor. Let us acknowledge with grateful hearts the many and significant blessings he has afforded upon us and our city. Please grant us the wisdom, justice, and charity to make the proper decisions here tonight. We ask that you grant us the proper counsel and guidance to do what is best for our community. May you bless and watch over those of us who are in service to our community, and may you bless each of us with peace and joy. We pray in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Next up on the agenda is our, what we call open session or citizens be heard. We had no one sign up, right?
No.
Okay, no one signed up to speak to the council, so we will go on to our consent agenda. And for you guys trying to learn something here, consent agenda is just a grouping of agenda items that that I and the staff consider fairly routine city business. And what we are looking for is hopefully a motion and a second to approve the group of items in one motion. Tonight we have consent agenda items 3 through 8. And I would like to tell you also, any council member who has a question about any of these items, we can answer it if it's can be answered briefly, or if they would like to pull one of those consent items for full discussion, they can ask to have it pulled. So again, we have consent agenda items 3 through 8, and I would ask any council members if you have any questions or a request to pull one of the items.
I have a question about the investment officers. I think it's page 8. I'm on page 8. One of the, only Wells Fargo had, I didn't understand why that was put in there, and it said, at this time, the investment officers have received the required documentation from Wells Fargo only. I'm not sure what that means.
Well, we have the 4 down at the bottom that are qualified or that we're looking at, and of the 4, only Wells Fargo has answered, right, Rick?
Yes, they're required to submit documentation saying they've read the policy and they certify that they're a broker. They certify that they have the requisite licenses. And so the only entity so far to submit anything is Wells Fargo out of those four.
So
But we have requested the documentation from all four of them.
okay, and then you will select one out of the four, or?
No, we can use, the purpose of this is to be able to use any
Any of them that respond and fill out the correct paperwork are eligible for us to use, so we can use one or more.
All right, that's it.
That it? Any other questions on anything?
I have a question about the same agenda item.
Shoot.
I had the same question that Councilmember Massey had about the Wells Fargo only as being the one that we don't receive the required documentation. Is there a time limit on it?
No, this is the entity, this happens on an annual basis where y'all approve the broker-dealers for the city. So throughout the entire year, we could utilize any one of these broker-dealers as long as, again, we have received their documentation, which is not difficult for them to provide. We requested it probably 2 weeks ago, and the only one to date, again, is Wells Fargo's that submitted it. So assuming this gets approved tomorrow, we could buy treasuries and things like that through Wells Fargo if we needed to.
Okay,
And some of them may choose not to submit, the paperwork.
okay. All right, and my other question was, we're using Patterson and Associates as the city's financial advisor. Did we use them last year also? I should probably know
We've
that.
used them for years.
Okay, they do San Antonio also, don't they?
They do many, many different governmental entities across the state.
Linda Patterson is the principal on it, and they're out of Austin.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And like I say, I think y'all approved them to be the financial advisor at least 4, 5, 6 years ago, right?
Longer than that. I
Yeah.
think.
And they've done a fine job.
All right, that's all I had.
Okay. Anything else? Any request to pull an item? Okay, then I would look for a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 3 through 8.
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve consent agenda items 3 through 8.
We have a motion from Buys. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Villanueva. Okay, no other discussion or questions being required. We have a motion from Buys, a second from Villanueva. So we'll call the question. All in favor of approving consent agenda items 3 through 8, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Nothing being heard. We have a unanimous approval, 5 ayes. That takes us to individual items for consideration, and this is a discussion only, so there's no motion or second required. And what we're doing here is Rick, or Susan put on the agenda request form is just updating our policies for purchasing and procurement. Simply, they haven't been done for some time, since we first wrote them. And we had originally thought about having action on this item too, but since it was pretty intensive to me and a lot of reading, we just thought we'd go for discussion, let you guys ask any questions or have any input on it, and that way we'll bring it back next meeting for action. So, discussion, we'll start out. Ed, you have any comments?
Just have a question. Is our city auditor involved in this process? I mean, I know it's part of a financial audit, but operationally speaking, they do recommend or make recommendations as to operating procedure.
Just through our normal back and forth, but Rick, you want to address that?
Yeah, this actually is, one of the reasons this is coming up is because the auditors are suggesting that we rely only on state law rather than going through the policy as it was originally created was pretty conservative. And in the sense that we were required to get 3 quotes for anything above $500. The problem with that is it's very difficult to get quotes for work that's $750. That's a relatively small amount. So what they are suggesting that we do is just simply follow state law, and that's what this policy does, is it exempts anything that's less than 3,000 from having to go through a formal quote process. Anything between 3,001 and 50,000 would be required to, the city would be required to contact 2 historically underutilized businesses for quotes. We would also for that dollar amount. In practice, we would get 3 quotes anyway, because that's a dollar amount that we believe is large enough that we should get 3 quotes, and anything over $50,000 would go through the regular competitive bidding process, and again, that's required by state law. So yes, the auditors have discussed this with us, and they believe that amending this is sufficient to comply with state law, but also will allow staff more flexibility in how we go about making purchasing decisions and how quickly we can get that work done.
Great, thanks.
I will just add to, Rick mentioned historically underutilized businesses, and that's a certain classification of businesses, and they register with the state, and they're given that designation. What we found fairly quickly years ago when we were starting to bid work, we found out why they're underutilized, because it's very difficult to even get them to return calls.
Right.
But we go to the website, Susan does, and for whatever we're trying to do, they'll pull a list, and then she contacts as many of those as we can. We do get some to respond, but that's what a hub, or historically underutilized business is. Alex, you have any discussion on this or comments?
Just a comment. I had asked a couple questions of our city administrator earlier, and he answered them very well for me. And the vast majority of what you see here is just really just cleaning it up, and I'm perfectly fine with it. Thank you.
Okay, Bert?
Okay, I have a couple of questions. We changed it from being $500. I'm trying to find exactly where it is. I should have been marked it a little bit better, because we had to go through the red lines and then the one that's
Know where
being
that
purchased.
is?
We changed it from 500 to 3,000 to
Yes.
get a bid? Why did we do that?
State law,
Oh, it's the state saying it goes up to 3,000?
right?
State law exempts anything under $3,000 from
So
bidding.
it's the state law, not us doing that?
Yeah, so we basically are making this policy fit with what state law requires.
Right.
The
All right.
city, again, the city can be more restrictive, which is what we originally did when we created this policy. But frankly, and I think that Susan can speak to this as well, getting bids for anything, for something that's $500, particularly when it's like a plumbing issue or an electrical issue, is pretty cumbersome. And can take some time when you actually need to get that job completed as soon as possible.
But if I remember right, isn't there a section here that says that you could get a bid?
We
Oh,
do.
yeah, we
Yeah,
can,
we're not restricting ourselves from not
No,
getting
but
a bid.
if we
No.
only get one, then we are able to use that. We don't have to get multiple bids.
Okay.
Because it is very hard to get people to bid, especially for the smaller items.
Okay, and then my,
Due to our due diligence.
okay, excuse me. My next question was on page 3 of the amended one, I guess we'll call it.
is this the red line version?
No, the amended one. I'm calling it the one that you cleaned up. You have over, in state law regarding historically underutilized businesses, it says 3,000 but not less than 50,000. But then you go to the next page and you go, the procurement will total $50,001. I know this is nitpicking, but what if it falls in that $1 range? I think that 50,000 should be changed to, 50,001 should just be changed to 50,000. Am I wrong? Are you getting what I'm asking?
Well, on page 3, it's saying anything between 3,000 and 50,000.
But less than 50,000. That's what it says.
It's 50,000 or less. That's just a wording choice, but I can clarify that before the next.
Typically, you don't have it. You could go from, is it less than 50? Because you could go 50 and then 49,999.
It's 3,000 to 50,000.
Okay, so that's why okay, but this is kind of unclear, but it says but less than.
Yeah,
I would
I'll-
change the wording,
I
I mean,
can-
in my mind.
I can clarify that before
Okay.
it comes back.
All right, I had another question. On page 6, under number 6, you have this is just a typo deal to me. Instead of the first paragraph underneath the number 6, it says B, and then the one after that says C. There's really no A. So I would change it to A and B.
It's a silent A.
Oh. I mean, does that
No,
make sense?
I must have deleted A.
Yeah. Okay, and then, hold on, I got something else I wanted to ask you. The large verbiage removal on page 9, me see here. So I'm going back to the red line one.
Are you in the red copy now?
Well, they're both page 9, either
Okay.
one of them. There's a large verbiage removal about I'll just start with the first sentence. The city can purchase goods and services through interlocal agreements with the following entities, and all that has been redlined. Is that another state deal?
No, actually,
That just was a cleanup?
Yeah,
yeah, because the paragraph before it actually says that the city can join into cooperative purchasing agreements.
Okay.
And so what those things that are redlined, those are examples of co-ops,
yeah,
essentially.
there's so many now that are doing this.
Okay.
He just, because I asked the same question, we're just eliminating these knowing full well we can go to any of them.
Yeah, we're still gonna use HGAC, buy board, and all of those. But there's so many, like the mayor said now, that we can use that are authorized by the legislature, that there was no reason
And they
to
don't need
just-
to be listed?
No.
No.
Okay. All right, good. And then on page 10, I think we should add, see the purchasing department, under B on page 10?
This is clean.
Yes, the clean one. In another part of the clean copy, it says that we can keep the I guess what you say, the quote or whatever we pick in Helotes, if it's within the 5% of the lowest bid. I think we should add that on that B also of that part. It's not in there. You understand what I'm saying? If a Helotes business comes in at 5%, within 5% of the lowest bid, we can use the Helotes company.
For which category of expenditure are you talking about?
Well, it says here, the purchasing, it's just, the verbiage is just about what the purchasing department can do. And it says it earlier in the clean copy that you can use the Helotes company if it's within 5% of the lowest bid. Is that not making sense?
It would be.
That
our-
is for purchases that are over $50,000.
Oh, so that it would not apply to this? We couldn't use it for this?
Well, you could, but you're
could,
not,
but
state,
that's-
go ahead, Mayor, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, that's $2,500 just on 50,000, so we may not wanna use one. We could have the prerogative to use them.
No,
But the higher it goes, the larger that 5% becomes, so we would probably go with the lower bid, but we can certainly add that verbiage in there.
Well, I mean, I'm just putting it out there for you. I mean, if you think it'd be worth doing.
Okay, let me just clarify something to make sure I understand what you're saying. The state law specifically states that competitive bidding over 50,000, that a city can go with a higher bid if it's within that 5% because it's a local company. State law allows that. State law doesn't prohibit the city from going with a local company for something under $50,000. So that can be a decision we make internally, that we want to go ahead and go with a local company, even though they're a
So the
little bit.
5% wouldn't matter.
That's what I'm trying to say, yes. The 5% doesn't matter for anything below 50,000.
And that is in state law for 50,000 or over, so it doesn't necessarily have to be in here, because the state law gives us that.
Well, yeah, and it is in here for anything over 50,000.
Is it? Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
Paul?
The only thing that I really, I guess, had was a statement more than anything else, is under roles and responsibilities, number 1, where mayor and council approves, I guess, extraordinary purchases. What do you consider extraordinary purchase? I mean, I've been here 6 years, and I don't know if I've ever been informed of an extraordinary purchase.
Well, if
But
something-
50,000 is kind of high.
If something isn't budgeted in the sense of a major program or a significant piece of software, council has approved for the police department monies for CopSync, for software for different departments, things that were not budgeted, but a month or two after the budget was approved, became evident that we probably should look at. And so we've brought those things back to council because they weren't specifically itemized within the budget. When we provide the budget to you all, you'll notice there's that note section under a lot of the different department budgets that say this line item we plan on using for this type of project or this software or whatever. If it's something that's a significant amount of money and was not even contemplated in the budget, that's what we typically send back to council to make sure that y'all are okay with it before we purchase it.
Even if it's less than $50,000?
Yeah, we've done that on quite a few things that are less than 50,000.
Okay.
One of the things
I
I think
just
we
can't- I
just
couldn't
recently did was with the PEG funds, we brought that to council when we upgraded all of the equipment here and the video camera systems.
And I
That
don't think
was-
we labeled it as, with that term, extraordinary. We just brought it to you.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm not labeling it as extraordinary.
okay, okay.
That would kind of read odd on an agenda item.
Anything else?
No, that's
Cynthia?
all.
I just have a question on one of the paragraphs on page 3 of the clean version. Under state law regarding historically underutilized businesses, I'm not exactly sure what this means. It says this section, 25 point whatever, requires that all municipalities in making an expenditure of more than 30,000 but less than 50, contact at least 2 historically underutilized businesses on a rotating basis based upon information provided by the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts website. If the website fails to identify a hub for a particular item or service in Bear County, the city is exempt from this section of the code. So,
Okay, so if I can answer that
yeah,
for you. Okay, so the comptroller has a website where if you're a historically underutilized business, which is a woman-owned, minority-owned, there's quite a few different categories to become a hub, okay? So the comptroller has a website where all the registered hubs in Bear County, actually throughout the entire state, are identified. And they're identified by what's called a commodity code, which is the type of thing that you're interested in purchasing, or service that you're interested in purchasing. So you have to go to that website for anything over 3,000 and look up that type of thing that you're purchasing. Let's say it's tractors, okay, you want to buy a tractor. Then you look it up in the system. If there are no hubs that sell tractors in Bear County, then you're exempt from having to comply further with hubs.
okay.
A lot of time, Bear County is pretty diverse, so it's very rare that we have something come up that there isn't something in Bear County that we would contact. And the rotating basis is if you have 5 hubs that are identified to buy a tractor, state law is trying to tell you you can't go to the same contractor that you like each time and ask for a quote. You have to rotate amongst all of those 5 hubs, if that makes sense.
Well, if the same hub gives a price along with others and they're low,
Yeah,
then we could go with that same one, but you have to give that competitive possibility out there to the
Yeah.
different hubs.
And if they do not apply for, you contact them and they do not put in the paperwork within the designated time, then isn't that exempt the city as well?
Typically what we do is we email them, because they all have email addresses, and say the city's interested in this. And so that we have that documentation to show that we contacted hubs, and we'll give them typically 2 weeks to respond, and a lot of times they don't respond. Sometimes they do, so.
Okay.
Well, like Rick said, we get a list. Susan goes down the list, and then hopefully some of them will reply. If none of them reply, we've made that good faith effort, and we don't need to continue trying to beg them to contact us.
Okay.
Yeah, and what we typically do is we're required to have 2, so we'll go out, we'll send an email out to 5 companies, 2 hubs, 3 non-hub companies, and solicit bids that way.
And yet you still have, we're required to pick the lowest bidder in each case?
No.
No.
You're never required, except for anything over 50,000, and even then, state law, you may be required to go with the lowest bidder, but most of the time, we go with the most advantageous bid for the city.
Okay. There's a
And
lot of things
There's criteria
involved.
they have to
Right.
meet.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Their
criteria.
reputation,
Right.
references, we check all of that. And if they look good, then we can go ahead and use the low bid. If not, we can go to the next one.
Right. Okay, that's it.
Ed, any follow-up?
No, sir.
Alex?
No, sir.
Bert? Paul?
No, sir.
No? Okay, well, as I said, this is not an action item, and a great discussion. You guys brought up some great points, and we appreciate that. And Rick will incorporate all of those things, and we will bring it back next session for action so that we can get that done. No more business on the agenda. If there are no objections, we will adjourn. We're going to adjourn 7:25.